Hey everyone, it's Karnak, Star Wars Armada Explained. Thank you for joining me. We're going to be looking at X-Wings today for Squadrons. As you all know, I've got all my cards wrapped up. Just got to wait for the new expansions to drop, which we got unfortunate news. They got pushed back into early part of January, or sometime in January. So that's unfortunate, but, they dropped a couple hints during their live stream, and that's how it is sometimes. I do wish they would stop missing their Christmas releases, but what can you do? But we're going to talk about X-Wings. So X-Wing Squadrons in Star Wars Armada. Currently, we have a generic version, and we have 4 uniques. One of them being what we call a generic unique. That it doesn't have defense tokens, but has a unique title. And then you have 3 unique squadrons of Luke Skywalker, Wedge Antilles, and a big Darklighter. So let's jump right in. You see I have a couple other things placed out that I'm going to draw from for this review. Let's start with the humble yet noble X-Wing. So X-Wings, if you see there, does not have a dot or bullet point from it, means it's not unique. You can bring as many X-Wings as what you have squadron points that can allow for, which again you can get 134 points per tournament regulations. X-Wings are for the Rebel Alliance. You can also see their symbol there in the bottom left-hand corner. Opposite of that is their point cost, which is only 13 points. And guys, for 13 points, this is very much as on par with most other Rebel squadrons. It's a versatile craft that is multi-role. So it is speed 3, which is that yellow box there. Next to that, to the right, is its hull value. It has 5 hull points. It shoots with an anti-squadron armament of 4 blue die, and it shoots an anti-ship armament of 1 red die. Now, in terms of its anti-squadron armament, with 4 blue die, X-Wings have a much higher chance of one-shotting the poor Empire's TIE fighters. Like, really good chance. And especially if you get like a reroll capability with like Tor and Far in there, or if you can activate them with flight controllers. I mean, the poor little TIE fighters just can't stand up to these guys. Now, where some slight weaknesses is their anti-ship capability, which is the red die. So red die have 2 blank sides and an accuracy icon. In the case of the X-Wing, it does have bomber. So of those 8 sides, 3 of them are right out, meaning it has, only 5 opportunities to deal damage. Still seems like that's really good, but in my experience, even then, like, you still roll those blanks or those other die. And of course, one of those sides is, double damage. So let's read the keywords that it comes with. So it comes with bomber, and we've already reviewed that with like the TIE bombers. But again, bombers is while attacking a ship, each of your critical icons adds 1 damage to the damage total, and you can resolve a critical effect. And they also come with escort. Squadrons you are engaged with cannot attack squadrons that lack escort unless performing a counterattack. So what does that mean? What do these keywords mean? Well, for bomber, typically when a squadron is shooting a ship, the only die facings that can deal damage, and maybe I'll get lucky, we got the single hits. So if it's bomber, though, if you roll like a hit crit like on a black or a crit on a blue, except these symbols, or the crit on the red, it can, as if it's got the bomber keyword, it actually will deal damage with those icons. And if you are attacking unshielded portions of a ship's hull, if any damage is taken where they need to draw damage cards, the first card they will draw is a face-up damage card unless they can contain that critical effect with that. So that is where bomber, it can be kind of useful. It's like, oh, hey, I not only did a damage, but if there's no shields, I can potentially get that critical effect going on as well. How does escort work? So escort, for example, we're just going to pretend this other X-Wing here is a Y-Wing, just real fast. So if this TIE fighter wants to come up and try to shoot this Y-Wing, for example, or in this case, he doesn't have escort, so there we go. So escort means if we're engaged, meaning if I'm at distance 1 of both of these targets, I can't shoot Rogue Squadron. I have to shoot the X-Wing. The X-Wing has escort. But if there's something in the way, like for example, if this rock was in the way and I was positioned something like this, even though we're at distance 1, when you draw a line of sight to the X-Wing with escort, you'll see there that there is no engagement because engagement is obstructed, meaning that I can shoot Rogue Squadron now. But if I still did want to shoot the escort, I could, but again, obstruction comes into effect. The TIE fighter, which throws the 3 blue die, now can only throw the 2 blue die instead. So I just want to make sure I was covering that. And that's something that a lot of people will get wrong. And what is a valid tactic is that people will toss, like, for example, Rogue Squadron will sit, what am I trying to say? That if you're wanting to try to come attack, like, for example, a target like this, the X-Wings out front protecting Rogue Squadron, people will fly and totally obstruct their attacking squadron, so it doesn't have to shoot escort, it can shoot the Rogue Squadron instead. Again, it's obstructed, but that's a way of getting around escort. Obviously, though, if you can draw a line of sight, which for squadron fights, that's closest point to closest point, which is typically, from center peg to center peg is how you usually will range that. All right. So that's how escort works. Very simple, very straightforward. The only time that escort doesn't work is counterattacks. So, for example, if both these guys were in range and I shot this TIE fighter and the TIE fighter had counter, when it does its counter, it shoots back at the squadron shooting at him. He's not shooting at escort because, again, that's specifically spelled out there. All right. So X-Wings, as I mentioned, multi-role fighter, speed 3, 5 hull. For 13 points, I mean, for Rebels, I think they're really good. They really are. Especially if you can get them kind of backed up by Yavaris. I mean, I've had 2 TIE fighters get taken out by a single X-Wing from a Yavaris activation before. You can kind of see, we throw the 4 blue die. Okay, that's a dead TIE fighter. Throw the other 4 blue die. And still a dead TIE fighter. You can see there, like, the ability to just nuke and completely remove a 3 health squadron can't be understated. That's why X-Wings are 13 points compared to a TIE Fighter's 8 points. Essentially, it's almost a 2-to-1. Not quite. But, I mean, TIE Fighters do get reroll, X-Wings don't. So if X-Wings roll bad, then they get no chance to correct it. But again, just the ability to just get a squadron off the board can't be understated. And then you can still protect, like, your weaker squadrons. But that's X-Wings. Nothing else to really go over here. Let's talk about Rogue Squadron. Rogue Squadron is in the Corellian Conflict campaign box. So what it does, it takes off escort, chucks that away, and gives them the Rogue keyword. Everything else stays the same except for the fact that Rogue Squadron, you'll see a dot in front of the name, signifies the unique. You can have 1 Rogue Squadron in your fleet. And Rogue, what does Rogue grant you is that the squadron can move and attack in the squadron phase rather than doing just one or the other. Otherwise, it's 14 points instead of 13 points. And again, if you want a cheap Rogue that's really good, and that's Rogue Squadron can accomplish it. They've got Bomber, they've got Rogue. That's the only difference between the two. Let's talk about Luke, and the fact that to back up 1 second, it's unique. So cards that grant bonuses against unique squadrons, like for example Agent Callus, does work against him. All right, let's talk about Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker, again, dot bullet point in front of his name. You can only have 1 Luke Skywalker in your fleet. Instead of a red die, though, he's throwing a black die. Consistently much higher damage because it's got 2 sides of hit crits on it. Again, still chance for 2 blanks, but by and large, he's definitely going to be able to really do some damage. He's 20 points. He gets double braces, but he gets a special ability. He gets, while attacking a ship, treat the defender as having no shields. Meaning that, for example, the Star Destroyer, if Luke came up and shot at the Star Destroyer and he rolled his black die, he would deal 1 damage to the ship's hull. He completely bypasses shields. He doesn't even bother with them because he's using the Force. He's hitting targeted weak points. That also means, for example, if he was able to roll a hit crit because he also is a bomber, not only you're dealing 2 damage into the ship's hull, but that first damage would be face up, unless of course the ship, like the Star Destroyer, wants to brace or if he wants to contain. But then you're forcing him to use defense tokens, and redirect doesn't work because, again, even if he was to choose redirect, Luke is ignoring the fact that there's any shields there. Now, for the longest time, there was some debate about how he worked with interactions with certain cards and things like that. So let's go over real quick in the FAQ. Let me find Luke here. There we go, Luke. And this is all 4 of the instances. Okay. So it says, ignore Luke Skywalker's ability while resolving the projector misaligned and shield failure damage card effects. Also, Luke Skywalker does not resolve the critical effect granted by Nora Wexley's ability while attacking a ship with shields. So let's talk about the second part first, about what do you mean he doesn't get her special effect? So Nora is a Y-Wing ace. Her special ability is that when bombers are attacking, if they roll a critical icon, not only are they dealing the damage from the critical, or the damage from that icon, they will deal an additional damage on if there's a shield there, you do the shield damage first, followed up by the damage from that die. But since Luke Skywalker is already treating the ship as having no shields, Nora's ability does not work with Luke. So that's why they put that there. It's like, well, he's already treating that enemy ship as having no shields, meaning he can't benefit from her special ability because technically to Luke, there are no shields for him to deal that extra damage to. And this goes back to the first part because people were drawing projector misaligned and shield failure cards, and the defender was going, well, your guy is treating my ship like I don't have any shields, so I shouldn't take any shields off my ship at all because it has none, lol. And it's like, no, that's not correct. You technically, just because Luke as the attacker is treating that ship with no shields does not mean that when you're drawing these damage cards that there are no shields unless there are no shields. So projector misaligned and shield failure face-up critical damage cards still resolve their effects. It's kind of interesting that they had to make an FAQ about it, but enough players were arguing the point that they were like, okay, we'll step in, we'll say that this is this. So that is Luke's ability. Again, when he blasts a ship, if he deals damage, he's treating the ship like Presido has no shields, damages the whole zone. So he's great against like low hull value ships, like small ships, where you can just kind of blast them apart if you get lucky enough. I mean, I've seen a Luke Skywalker get double tapped of Yavaris and get unactivated like 8R Talon for like 3 Luke Skywalker attacks, and I've seen him roll like 3 hit crits for 6 damage on a Star Destroyer, and that just gets ridiculous. He pretty much can take a Star Destroyer down by himself. Alright, moving on, let's talk about Wedge Antilles. So Wedge Antilles also throws a black die for his bomber dice instead of red. Again, unique, you can only have 1 Wedge Antilles in your fleet. He's 19 points. His special ability is, while attacking an activated squadron, you may add 2 blue die to your attack pool. So how does this ability work? Well, if he's flying up, if there's a bunch of TIE fighters here, for example, one of them has already activated. So if he was to shoot a regular TIE fighter that has not activated, he would throw his normal anti-squadron armament of 4 blue die. However, if he is attacking a squadron that has activated, like this TIE fighter here on the orange tab, he can throw 6 blue die, which, as you can see there, if this was an ace or some other Imperial target, like that is a lot of damage, especially if you take into effect, well, maybe you activate him with flight controllers, or if you have Tolan Far to re-roll. That kills 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 damage and 2 accuracies. That just kills pretty much. That one-shots a TIE Advance ace, because you lock both his defense tokens and you murder him. So that is a perfect roll. If you can get a roll like that, that's crazy. That typically doesn't happen when I play with Wedge Antilles. But you can see the power with Wedge for 19 points. Again, he still has Bomber Escort, meaning that, people are still going to try to blast him apart so you can't get that extra benefit of his blue die. But since that's kind of his job anyways to protect the other ship, it's like, okay, well, you have to kill me regardless, but if you don't, I'm going to attack back and I'm just going to obliterate, your squadrons. That's Wedge Antilles. Nothing else about him. Let's talk about Biggs. Biggs Darklighter, the Fighter Rebellion hero from the Battle of the First Death Star, Luke's friend who sacrifices his life, and his ability reflects that. So Biggs Darklighter, again, unique, can only have 1 of them in your fleet. He does have the red anti-ship attack die, just like other X-Wings. His ability is a little different. Again, he's still bomber, still escort, but his card ability says, Before a friendly squadron with escort at distance 1 suffers damage during an attack, you may reduce the total damage by 1. If you do, choose another friendly squadron with escort at distance 1. That squadron suffers 1 damage. So how does this ability work? We're going to say, for example, he's got, and this is pretty standard, you'll see like Biggs with 2 Xwings or 2 YT-1300s. And we'll say that these TIE fighters are like, there's Biggs, we hate this guy, we're going to come up and try to shoot him. So this TIE fighter is shooting at Biggs, he rolls the 3 blue die, and he's dealing 1 damage, okay, because no other friendly Imperial squadrons are there yet to help this guy out. So 1 damage. Well, Biggs can say, I have my card ability, I have escort, and before I suffer the damage from this attack, I can reduce the total damage by 1, so that damage is now 0. But since I've done that, I now need to choose another friendly squadron with escort at a distance 1, and that squadron suffers 1 damage. So I can yoink that damage and throw it on, for example, this Xwing over here, and boom. So instead of Biggs taking that 1 plink damage, he takes it, chucks it to a different Xwing, a generic Xwing. This helps improve Biggs's lifespan, so he's lasting so much longer in his role as an escort. And again, even though you'll follow up, like, for example, a second TIE fighter here, whoops, just to give the full effect of what's going on. Reroll again 1. Okay, I'm not going to take that damage. I'm going to chuck it over to this other X-Wing over here. And this guy's like, well, I'm tired of trying to shoot Biggs. I'm going to shoot this other X-Wing then. So instead of shooting Biggs, I'm going to shoot this guy. And then he throws the... Man, these TIE fighters are really sucking. There we go. 1 damage. And then Biggs can say, you know what? He can just take it. Or even Biggs can be like, you know what? I'm going to take that damage over the generic X-Wing. Because again... he's got the braces and things. Maybe you want to encourage the enemy to keep attacking him. Or, again, if you have more squadrons of escort around that haven't taken any damage, you kind of just shuttle it around. Why would you want to shuttle damage around like this? Well, 1, it doesn't give your opponent any one target that's weaker than another, especially if you can take low health squadrons, damage high health squadrons. By spreading this damage all the way around, it doesn't give your opponent a clear idea of who should he try to focus and kill down. Also, it just helps prolong the lifespan of your squadron so that they can attack back and you're getting value out of those squadrons. Especially when it's a YT-1300, which has 7 hull, backed by like Jan Ors with the brace for them. Like, I have thrown 6 damage at a YT-17 or 1300. So 6 damage. Jan reduced it from 6 to 3, which Jan Ors is a unique squadron that flies a hawk that her special ability is she can use her brace ability on defenders. So again, took that damage from 6 to 3. So now I'm dealing 3 damage, but guess what? Biggs then takes 1 damage and moves it to somebody else, and then it takes 2 damage, so it goes from 7 to 5, and like you didn't do anything to it. It's still sitting there laughing in your face. So that's the power of Biggs. And a lot of people will fly what's called a Biggs ball, where it's him, a couple X-Wings, a couple of YT-1300s, and they're protecting like really valuable aces like Ten-Nub, Janors, or other like bomber type characters. And the whole point of the Biggs ball is that it's super difficult to bring down very quickly. It takes time to chew through it. And especially for the Rebel Alliance, even a small Biggs ball, even just Biggs and 2 escorts, it takes a lot of squadrons just to kill that. Usually 2 to 3 turns of just anti-squadron shooting. Even if I'm throwing 134 points at it, I've thrown 134 points at Biggs and 2 X-Wings backed by Jan Ors and have not killed it. So a lot of strength there for a little investment. So that's essentially that's the X-Wings. Now to touch a little bit more on Biggs Darklighter, so this damage moving ability, it doesn't affect things like, for example, strategic or ruthless strategists or wide area barrage. Why is that? Well, ruthless strategist is after attacking, you can deal a damage to one of your friendly squadrons to deal a damage to another squadron engage with him. So, for example, if I use Ruthless Strategist on this TIE Fighter, I can deal an automatic plink damage to Biggs, and he can't shuttle away. Why? Because this is not an attack, it is a card effect. And again, it specifically states it's after an attack. It's in its own timing window. So Biggs can't shuttle or move that damage around. Same deal with Wide Area Barrage. So Wide Area Barrage it's a critical effect. So it is just you're picking one target and you're dealing that card's effective damage to a target. And again, since it's not an attack, at least in this consideration, you might be attacking something else, but you're not attacking the squadron. You're just taking damage from this effect, and you're hitting something with it. So again, for example, can't brace Wide Area Barrage, critical effect that it gives, can't move that damage around, etc. Want to make sure I was touching on that. That's not all of the examples, but that should give you a clear idea about how his ability works. Oh, another thing about Biggs, almost missed this. So I want to make sure I'm not missing anything else about Biggs here. I think we have a couple of instances. We got 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's see here. Let's talk about Biggs. So, okay, Squadron cards, Biggs Darklighter. While resolving Biggs Darklighter's ability, you cannot choose a friendly squadron that has been destroyed, but is still in the play area because of General Icon's card effect. I can't believe I almost forgot about this. This was a really big BS thing back in the day, was that you would have like a YT 1300, you finally kill it, but then Biggs would be around, and he's now shuttling damage over to the already destroyed squadron, saying, lol, I don't care, he's already dead, I can keep giving him damage. And rightfully so, that was called out as that is unintended, that is super BS, that's not very fun, that's not very fair. And so FFG is like, yep, you're right, we're going to change this effect that even though that unique squadron or ace with escort has been killed, you can't just keep shuttling damage over to him like that with that ability. That's not very fair. So he can't shuttle damage to another unique squadron that has escort that's already been killed. Like, for example, if Luke was dead and people are shooting Biggs, and Biggs just can't keep tossing damage over to Luke. But that's X-Wings. Nothing else super crazy about them. No like rules heavy thing going in with them. But of course, if you feel like I missed anything or got anything wrong, please be sure to let me know. Otherwise, I hope you're enjoying these Squadron videos. Definitely going to try to get a few more out before the new expansions drops. And for those of you that haven't checked out my new Armada reference manual, go look at that again. Try to make sure I'm updating that at least once a week with some new information. But of course, I enjoy doing these videos for you guys. I'm looking forward to primes and all that and worlds. And I'll catch you all later.